It is known that Ndrangheta word etymologically has been derived from a Greek word Ndrangheta, which means manliness, bravery, or valor. According to the historians, the word Ndrangheta also means community of honorable men. So the Greek word Ndrangheta is mostly meant equal to military engagement. By the way, if you ask why would Ndrangheta use a word derived from Greek, it is because South Italy, and especially Calabria region, which lies in the edge of the Italian peninsula, was a Greek colony which was known as Magna Graecia, meaning the Greater Greece. The Calabrese Mafia is also mentioned with simpler names such as the Mafia or Honor Society. According to the historians, the name Ndrangheta was started to being used in 1950s. Before then, simpler names like the Mafia or Camorra were used. Although today's Camorra is a different crime syndicate, the word itself was used to mention older generation of small crime groups in simpler way. During the 1950s, this way of mentioning was changed. Because there were different large crime syndicates were existing in different regions such as the Cosa Nostra in Sicily and Camorra around Napoli. So this may have been in order to distinguish these groups in a more definitive way. In reality, Ndrangheta have become much stronger and much different in many aspects than the Sicilian Mafia or the Cosa Nostra, which we have mentioned before. Ndrangheta now is possibly the most effective organization regarding the cocaine trafficking in Europe. It is also the trusted partner of the South American drug cartels and drug trade. Today, the network they have built extends over Australia, Chile, and even Canada, as in these countries there are active Ndrinas or families in more traditional sense. Ndrangheta has an interesting and complex organizational structure, which is not easy to penetrate. It was during the rise of the Cosa Nostra and the Neapolitan Mafia, the Camorra, Ndrangheta was rising in power and solidifying its position without taking too much attention. Because of the popularity of the other organizations in the past years, Ndrangheta was even considered to be a branch of the Cosa Nostra in the Calabria region. We'll move on to the organizational structure, but before it, let's take a closer look at the Calabria region where the Ndrangheta originated. Calabria is a region with an estimated population of 2 million people today. Its largest city is Reggio Calabria and is quite close to Sicily's Messina region. It is located at the very tip of the boot. About half of the region consists of mountains, only 9% being the flatland. In the northern region are the Polino Mountains, which separate Calabria from the rest of all of Italy in one line, constituting a natural border. While it is considered to be the most economically backward region in the country, the richest persons of the country sometimes may emerge from this region because of this organization. Although on paper the agricultural production is their biggest activity, it is only the 4% of the population who are occupied with it. The region has somewhere over 20% unemployment rate, making it one of Italy's most unemployed regions, which can also go for the rest of the European Union. However, a Calabrian's main activity is Ndrangheta, which is not included in employment reports. Its complex, tough-to-crack organization is what makes Ndrangheta so secretive, effective, and durable. It could get confusing to compare it to the organizations like the Cosa Nostra or its American counterpart, where you have a strict top-down hierarchy. But there are slight similarities. Each cell within Ndrangheta is called Ndrina. These are similar to the regional families in the Sicilian Cosa Nostra. Ndrinas are mostly the local families, smallest organizational units. While a Ndrina acts autonomously regarding the activities in its own region, they continue to exist as a dependent organization to a single boss. These bosses control neighborhoods in big cities or smaller towns. Ndrinas also exist outside Calabria, such as in cities like Turin or Milan. Moreover, at the present time, Ndrinas also exists in other countries, even in Australia. Their existence may differ in numbers depending on the characteristics of the given city. Each Ndrina is run by the boss called Capo Bastone. This word could also be translated as chief rod or chief staff, which are likely to be shepherd's terms, so Capo Bastone can be construed as the chief shepherd. Usually, people who are Capo Bastones are also the fathers of the Ndrina members, because Ndrangheta bases itself on the closest ties that stem from blood relationship. So compared to the Sicilian Cosa Nostra or American Mafia, inside Ndrangheta there is greater level of nepotism, where the members of the entire mob can be direct relatives. Like the Cosa Nostra, Ndrangheta also favors meritocracy up to some level, but blood relation is the way for creating Ndrinas. Each Ndrina mostly choose blood-related people such as cousins, nephews, sons, etc., to hold important positions. These clans, the Ndrinas, which are led by Capo Bastones, also spread and broaden their influence via forming new political alliances by marriages, just like in the medieval times. When one or more than one Ndrina becomes stronger and dominant in a specific region, which means them having at least 49 official members in a Ndrina, this region gets promoted to becoming a locale by Ndrangheta. Then they appoint a capo locale to this region, who is the bigger boss of that locale above the Capo Bastones. The region's strongest Capo Bastone can also get promoted to capo locale, depending on the size of his Ndrina. Capo locales, the local bosses, gather in Camera di Controllo, the administration board meeting. This body is also known as La Provincia. These we can compare to the commission gatherings of the Cosa Nostra. These boards are in fact the supreme authorities that solve problems within the organization itself and keep the peace among the groups of the region. In fact, this structure, La Provincia, was formed after the greatest civil war in Ndrangheta organization, which is also called the First Ndrangheta War. As we mentioned, each capo bastone is a subordinate to a capo locale, and each capo locale is under capo societa, who report to mastro di giornata, and these are also subordinate to contabiles. And finally, on top, the highest rank is capo di crimine, the highest in the hierarchy. However, the clans, aka Ndrinas, usually act autonomously. It is also important to mention that unlike in Cosa Nostra, the Ndrinas do not share their income with the high-ranking members, but only with their respective capo bastone, so each clan are in control of their own income. However, local cooperations can usually happen. Even though the administration board is not directly involved in the monetary issues, it still has a crucial importance in making important decisions. Also, a significant amount from the total income coming from important operations of the clans are also kicked up to this board. The leader of the entire organization is called Capo Crimine, the chief of crime. Mastro di Giornata means the daily master or the master of the day, who is responsible from the day-to-day activities of Ndrangheta. We can compare this to the street boss or the underboss in La Cosa Nostra. Capo Societa, Contabile, and Capo Locale ranks are subordinates to these top ranks. Contabiles are also known as the accountants. They take care of managing illegal incomes, which are described as valighetas. It is also worth to mention that even though the members of this syndicate join the organization by blood relation, Capo Crimine is elected during the annual meeting as the president of those meetings. So Capo Crimine is sort of a rounded moderator rather than a capo di tutti capi, the boss of bosses in Sicilian sense. On the lower ranks, each locale is formed with a dual membership system. These are Società Minore, the minor society, and Società Maggiore, the upper society in each locale. Another word for the upper society is Società Santa, the holy society. In Ndrangheta, there are many different ranks called doti. Among the ranks of Società Minore, the entry-level rank is Giovane d'Onore, honored youth, who are usually the blood relatives of the boss. Solely for this, they have direct right to be a member, and above them are Picciotto d'Onores, the honored lads, who usually run simple errands until they reach the rank called Camorrista. Camorrista could be interpreted as wise guy or mobster. These Camorristas have the right to use violence and are authorized for more criminal activities. The highest rank in a Società Minore is Scarista, which we can compare to a soldier, button man, or made man in La Cosa Nostra. Then comes the upper society. Here, the entry-level rank is called Sanista, who reports to Evangelista, which is derived from the word Vangelo, the Bible. So Evangelista is like a member of the Bible. The reason for the name is that any member who reaches this level has to put his hand on the Bible and swear an oath of allegiance. After these two ranks, the higher ranks are named in this order: Trequartino, Quartino, Padrino, aka Godfather, Crociata, Bartolo, Mamma Santissima, and Infinito. The namings have strong influence from the biblical terminology, and these ranks constitute the upper society. As the ranking system of Ndrangheta, the rituals also share many characteristics with the Catholic Church. For example, Picciotto, Camorrista, and Scarista ranks are identified with Saint Liberata, Saint Nunzia, and Saint Elizabeth. Upper society, Società Maggiore, identifies itself with Count Ugolino from Dante Alighieri's Inferno from Divine Comedy. Historically, Count Ugolino was a noble politician who was convicted of treachery, and in Dante's Inferno, he is punished with having to eat his own children. Ndrangheta's upper ranks figuratively identify themselves with Ugolino's sin, because the upper-ranked members have the privilege to order an execution of their sons, and even to betray their own children or relatives. In a way, Ugolino's sin is their power. Such religious motifs play a great role in initiation ceremonies. These ceremonies are called baptisms, where the new members stand side by side in the shape of a horseshoe, and with his guarantor, which could be compared to a godfather, each of the recruits enter a room and become a member. The godfathers vouch for them, thus they are responsible with the action of their recruits. During this ceremony, a capo societa asks several questions to the new members, asks them to read the Ndrangheta's rules out loud, and reminds each of them that a violation of the rules will result with their death. Just like in the Cosa Nostra, this ceremony is also a blood baptism ceremony. So they pick the finger of each new member with a needle, and they let the blood flow upon a painting or a picture of the Archangel Michael. After this, the picture is burnt from one of its corners, like in the Cosa Nostra. This is how a new, honored man joins the ranks of Ndrangheta. But what's different from the Cosa Nostra is that, reportedly, Ndrangheta have ceremonies for several promotions, not only the initiation. The blood relation, strict rituals, and horizontal structure are important factors in the success of Ndrangheta. And historically, out of its 5,000 members, there were only 133 pentiti, or confessors. Since 1995, only 2.6% of Ndrangheta has become confessors, while for the Neapolitan Camorra, the percentage is 2.8%, and for the Cosa Nostra, it is nearly 7%. However, the reason for such a high percentage for the Cosa Nostra can be the terror caused by the Corleonese Mafia clan that started in 1980s until mid-1990s. Today, Ndrangheta is considered as the #1 organization in European drug trafficking. With such a big money, Ndrangheta expands its network of politicians, officials, business people, and local police. And as far as we know, it is free to kill the family members of anyone who violated omerta rules in Ndrangheta as well. Ndrangheta is strictly bound to these values as being a strictly conservative organization. For example, in 1970s, they expelled one member, Vincenzo Macri, for riding a motorcycle and wearing shorts with t-shirts. It is worth to mention that Vincenzo is the son of one of the biggest bosses in Ndrangheta, Antonio Macri. Nonetheless, when it comes to rules, Ndrangheta does not make any exception. Ndrangheta expects from their members to adopt a traditional lifestyle. They do not tolerate those who stand out too much. Even though it has a well-functioning structure, Ndrangheta has had also some internal conflicts just like its neighbors. The most famous among these is San Luca Vendetta. Two different clans, Ndrangheta and Pellavotari Romeo families of San Luca village of Calabria, have been fighting for 16 years. And amid this war, a massacre took place in a peaceful German town, Duisburg, in 2007. The feud has somehow an absurd reason. For in 1991, during a carnival celebration, several members from Stragio clan had thrown eggs and flour in front of a bar which was ran by Pella clan. When the eggs tainted the car of a Votar family member, this was considered as an act of provocation, which was actually an excuse to start a war, for the territorial strife between the two clans was already cooking up. But after this igniting incident, a bloody war started between the two clans. Throughout the years, over a dozen murders has been committed related to the vendetta. However, the last murder was the most sensational among all of these murders. As a retaliation to murders committed recently, a massacre took place in the peaceful town of Duisburg, Germany in 2007. During the 18th birthday celebration of one of the victims in front of an Italian restaurant named De Bruno, 6 people were shot to death from Pella clan. One of the victims was responsible for the death of Maria Strangio. Thus, the attack is considered as in retaliation. It is believed that the perpetrators of this attack were Giovanni Stragio and Giuseppe Ndrangheta. These also hint the close blood relations regarding the recruitment policies. Reportedly, Giuseppe Ndrangheta is a significant player in the international cocaine trafficking.